Everyone, my name is Sabina and I've been a teacher for 30 years and I also tutor children for their SATs, their 11 plus, and teach GCSE foundation level English and maths. So in this session, what we're going to look at is a SATs question from the 2023 paper, and it looks at adverbs. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through what children learn from year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and show you how it progresses to help them answer this question, this SATs question that children took in 2023. So I'm going to show you how the schooling system works by going through that process. For those of you who are homeschooling or home educating your children, or you're just helping with homework and schoolwork, then you can actually see what it is that the children are learning in each of the years and why they're learning it and how that then helps them in order to answer questions like these in their SATs. So let's start off with the test question. Okay, so this is the SATs SPAG paper, so that's spelling, punctuation and grammar paper from 2023. And the question 29 says, insert a comma after the fronted adverbial in each sentence. So we've got two sentences here. Luckily for us, the ball rolled slowly past the goal. And after 3 hours of hard work, the builders managed to dig out the tree. So children need to identify, first of all, what the fronted adverbial is, and then decide where the comma is going to go. So rather than telling you what the answer is, let me show you what it is that they learn through the years that will then show you how to answer this question. So here we have year 1, and in year 1, children actually learn adverbs, but they are not told that these are adverbs because they're actually too young. I mean, they're only about 6 years old, so giving them big words like adverbs is not something that we do in school. However, what we do is teach them what the words are, because the idea is to develop their vocabulary. So children will learn words like quickly, slowly, quietly. They will also learn why we use these words. So these words are used to describe actions. So actions are things that we do. So how does somebody do something? Well, they might do it quickly. They might do it slowly. They might do it quietly. So they will understand the purpose of the word, but not necessarily that they are called adverbs. Now, most of the words that they learn end in ly, so they are easy to identify. So you will have here, as you can see here, quickly, slowly, quietly, all end in ly. So let's have a look at this in a bit more detail. So here we have, they laughed loudly, they whispered quietly, they sang happily, they shouted angrily. So here we can see that the verbs, the doing words, laughed, whispered, sang, shouted, the doing words are described using the ly words. So that is the purpose of adverbs in year 1, to show children how they're connected. Then moving on to year 2, they learn a bit more about the adverbs. Now here they will learn more words, but longer words, more complex words, such as carefully, lovingly, sadly, nervously, slowly, silently. And they will associate these with more actions. And then moving on, they will, in year 2, be taught the word adverbs. And they will be taught that the adverbs go with verbs, which are doing words. Adverbs actually describe doing words. So how did they cry? They cried sadly. How did they roar? They roared angrily. They shouted loudly. They sang sweetly. They danced gracefully. They whispered quietly. So children in year 2 will be taught the word adverbs, and they will be taught that they are used to describe verbs. And this is how the words are put together. Then moving on to year 3, adverbs, they find out that adverbs don't just end in ly. Okay, so now the adverbs get a little bit more complex. So here, the adverbs that don't end in ly could be ones like far, soon, well, often. And so the verb is ran. How far did they run? Where did they run? They ran far. They will return soon. They're feeling well or feeling unwell. They visited often. Okay, so adverbs here are describing the verb, but they are not ending in ly. Then in year 4, they learn that they are not just for verbs. So adverbs don't only describe verbs. They also describe adjectives and other adverbs. And they describe how something is done, when something is done, how often something is done, how much it is done, and where it is done. So, for example, how it could be done is it could be done elegantly, hungrily, gladly, noisily. How often is it done? It's done monthly, hourly, daily, yearly, never, or regularly. Or how much is done? A lot, a little, always, or frequently. And where is it done? At home, in the kitchen, behind the door, whatever. Okay, so things are done in different ways. So then adverbs are used to describe how something is done, and that's the way they are described. So in year 4, the types of adverbs, we've got time adverbials. An adverb is a word, usually a single word. An adverbial is more of a phrase, so it's an adverbial phrase. So we can have the adverb yesterday or tomorrow, or we could have the adverbial next year. Adverbs, adverbials, they're used interchangeably. They're pretty much the same thing. So when something is done, it is done. It was done yesterday. It was done. It can be done tomorrow. It can be done next year. Place adverbials: at school, in the garden, later, inside, outside. Then there's quality and quantity. It can be done a little, can be done a lot, constantly, frequently, occasionally. Oh, there's a spelling mistake there. Just correct that. Oh. Okay, generally. Right, there we go. So then we have fronted adverbials in year 5. Now, they already know what an adverbial is. They know that an adverbial is a word or a group of words that describe adjectives, other adverbs, and verbs. But now they're going to learn fronted adverbials, which means we just take that adverbial and we put it at the front of a sentence. So they jumped excitedly, walked casually, climbed cautiously. So let me see if this does it better. So we have the basic adverb as quietly, and then quietly hiding. So the cat in the picture is quietly hiding. This one is describing the verb. So hiding is the verb. So the cat is hiding quietly or quietly hiding. Then it can be used to describe an adjective. So the cat was very quiet and quietly hiding. And it can be used to describe another adverb. So soon is another adverb. So very is also an adverb. So very soon, the adverb describes the adverb. Then we get to put them all together. And here you will see the fronted adverbial. So quietly is our adverb. Quietly muttering, well, muttering is the verb, so quietly is describing the muttering, so quietly muttering, and then quietly muttering spells. So now this witch is quietly muttering the spells, and while she's stirring gently. So gently is an adverb, and quietly is an adverb. And now we have quietly muttering spells while stirring gently the black cauldron, which was slightly wobbling. Okay, so we have here quietly muttering spells at the beginning of the sentence. This is actually a fronted adverbial because it's telling us what the witch was doing and how she was doing it. So she was quietly muttering spells. Okay, so it's at the front of the sentence. So that is actually a fronted adverbial. So let's move on. Another example. So we have an adverbial phrase, a time adverbial phrase, which is in the morning. And we have in the morning after a terrible storm. So we actually have two adverbials here. We've got in the morning and then after. Okay, so after is an adverb as well. It's a time adverb. And in the morning is a time adverbial. So in the morning after a terrible storm. And we have in the morning. Oh, that's repeated. And then in the morning, after a terrible storm, the terrified kitten nervously uncovered her emerald green eyes. So you can see here in the morning, we've got a fronted adverbial, and then we've got another adverbial after a terrible storm, but it's not fronted because this one's in the middle. And then we have another adverb, nervously uncovered. So uncovered is the doing word, but the kitten's doing it nervously. They're nervously uncovering their emerald green eyes. So we have 1, 2, 3 adverbials in this sentence, but the in the morning is the fronted adverbial and the comma goes after the fronted adverbial. Okay, so let's move on. So in year 6, children will consolidate all the information that they've learned. So we've got time adverbials, place adverbials, fronted adverbials, which just means taking your time adverbial, place adverbial, and any other adverbial and putting it to the front of the sentence. And also how and frequency and quantity adverbials. So we have in the morning, later, after, next, at the moment, all of a sudden, after a while. And then place adverbials in the tree, at the park, amongst the clouds, under the sea, behind the chair, under the table, next to the bin. We have the fronted adverbials at midnight on a beautiful summer's day, in the lake behind the Black Forest. And you can see from the fronted adverbials, they have to start with capital letters. Now, that is an important part of fronted adverbials. You can see here, we've got an assortment of place adverbials. Now, some of them started with capital letters and some of them didn't. Now, the ones that didn't would be in the middle of a sentence. The ones that have a capital letter would be at the beginning of a sentence. So even though these are place adverbials, these are actually fronted adverbials too, because they start with a capital letter. And the same again here, in the morning, it's a time adverbial, but this one is a fronted adverbial because it starts with a capital letter. The other ones here clearly don't start with a capital letter, so they're probably going to be found within a sentence. So fronted adverbial, the indicator that tells us that it's a fronted adverbial is the fact that it starts with a capital letter. And then we have the frequency, how something is done, the quantity, a little nervously, cautiously, excitedly, absent-mindedly, never, and suddenly. So again, we've got different types of adverbials and children need to know what those types are. So putting this all together, children will do writing exercise in their year 6 work, and that will also be assessed. So they need to show that they can use fronted adverbials, time adverbials, place adverbials well, and use really, really good descriptive adverbials too. So they need to be able to use interesting adverbials like in the dead of night. Now you can see from this that it starts with a capital letter, so it's at the beginning of a sentence, so it's a fronted adverbial. In the dead of night, it tells us when it happens, and it's a time adverbial, and it's followed by a comma. So that is what identifies a fronted adverbial. So if we put this into a sentence, in the dead of night, as the ominous grey clouds silently crept across the face of the moon, an owl nervously hooted its warning. So we have got 3 adverbials here. In the dead of night, our fronted adverbial, time adverbial. We've got silently describing how the clouds crept across the face of the moon. And then we have nervously hooted. So now this is describing the verb. So we've got 2 adverbials describing verbs, doing words, and we have a time adverbial at the beginning of the sentence. Okay, so now moving along. So if you want to support your children in learning their adverbs at home. Look at how things are done and how things are done, how they're described. Identify different words that describe how things are done. Read stories and pick out the adverbs so that you can discover new interesting words, and then practice writing them down in writing exercises. So let's move on. So here, the challenge of learning adverbs is to understand what a lot of children have difficulty with is they mistake adjectives for adverbs. They think because an adverb describes a verb, it's either an adjective, or they might mistake an adjective for an adverb. So the way we know the difference is an adjective describes a noun. So it describes a thing. The book was blue. The clothes were wet. So adjectives describe things, but adverbs describe how something is done. So it's an action, it describes an action. Often they end in ly, but not always. And those words that don't end in ly can be difficult for children to learn as well. So very soon, often, suddenly. Sometimes also they get confused because some adverbials are also used as conjunctions. So I'll cover conjunctions in a different lesson, but words like suddenly, therefore, meanwhile, those are used as conjunctions as well. So they're conjunctive adverbials. So those are some things that cause children a bit of confusion. So in order to improve their language and learning, they need to master adverbials. As you can see, master adverbials, adverbs, as you can see how they're used in sentences, and it's quite complex. They need to know the difference between describing a verb and describing a noun. And also adverbs describe adjectives too. They describe adjectives, they describe verbs, and they describe other adverbs. They need to understand sentence construction so that they can write in complex sentences. So going back to our sentences and the question we had at the beginning, insert the comma after the fronted adverbial. So we know that a fronted adverbial has to start with a capital letter. We know it's going to be at the beginning of the sentence. So both of these sentences start with capital letters. So the first part of the sentence has to be a fronted adverbial. But now we have to work out, where does that comma go? So it says, luckily for us, the ball rolled slowly past the goal. Now, even just by saying it, where you pause is usually where the comma goes, because we put commas in for the pause. So luckily for us, so when I read it slowly, the comma goes after the us. Luckily for us, comma, the ball rolled slowly past the goal. We do have slowly in that sentence to confuse the child, to test that the child actually understands what a fronted adverbial is, as opposed to any other adverbial. So they've actually put two adverbials in there, but clearly if they put the comma after the slowly here, then it would be wrong, because that is not the adverbial they want. They want the fronted one, which is the luckily for us. And it's not just luckily for us, because that wouldn't make sense. We wouldn't just say luckily and then for us the ball rolled down the hill. It's luckily for us, comma, the ball rolled slowly past the goal. I had to think then. After 3 hours of hard work, that's where the natural pause is. So after 3 hours of hard work, comma, the builders managed to dig out the tree. Okay, so again, the fronted adverbial is after the hard work, because it doesn't make sense to say after 3 hours, comma, of hard work, the builders managed to dig out the tree. So because there has to be a pause, the fronted adverbial has to have a pause after it. It doesn't make sense to put it just after the time. So after 3 hours of hard work, the builders managed to, it doesn't make sense. So after 3 hours of hard work, comma, the builders managed to dig out the tree. So I hope that makes sense and was informative. And if you have any questions about what I've explained to you and you want to drop me a line in the comments, then I will try and explain the best I can in the comments. Otherwise, I will do another video. Also, I have a parent-teacher group and I answer all your questions in there. And you get access to this video and other videos that I've done so that you can refer back to them in that group too. I do 3 of these sessions a week, which last on the platform for about a week, and then I take them off and then they get archived into the group. So if you want to join the group, then the link and the details are in the description below. So come and join the group and then I'll happily answer any questions that you have. I also have a free parent teaching magazine, which goes out every month. So if you would like access to that delivered free to your inbox, then sign up. The details are also in the link with this description. And for those of you who are watching and are part of my group already, then we have our live Zoom session after this. So give me about 10 minutes and then I will join you and answer any more questions that you may have either about what I've covered in this session or anything else that you're struggling with, that your child is struggling with, and I will answer those questions too. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop me a line. And otherwise, I will jump onto my Zoom with everybody else that's in my group. And for anybody else that isn't, then I will see you tomorrow because I have another session tomorrow. And I will cover, I think I'm going to cover a maths question tomorrow, actually. So that will be at 9 p.m. GMT UK time. And so I bid everybody a wonderful evening and I will see you all then. And everybody else, I will see you on Zoom in about 10 minutes. Okay, bye.